it was the early days in cycling and premium cycles. To sell or to even pitch an idea to a customer that, hey, there's a bike and it costs 30,000 rupees. And the expression on their face would be like priceless, because they're like, 50 grand. What are you talking about? That's a cycle.
If you treat people fairly, whether those are customers or employees, for the most part, you will be treated well in return.
Right.
And I think a metric that I could gauge this by is we've had, and you know this, we have very low employee turnover.
Right.
Probably the lowest in business.
Yeah.
Right? We also have a relatively low customer turnover.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think our relationships with both employees and customers are cherished.
Yeah.
And I think that probably is the ethos of the place. Hi, I'm Pavan.
And I'm Nikhil.
And we're here on the Working Athlete podcast to talk about our journey and the journey of our store, Crankmeister Bicycle Works in Bangalore cycling.
I'm Barbeque and this is the Working Athlete Podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, time management, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future episodes. Today, I am at Crankmeister with Pavan and Nikhil. Hi Pavan, hi Nikhil. Welcome to the Working Athlete Podcast.
Thank you.
All right, since this is a Working Athlete Podcast, I'm really curious about what was work for you guys before Crankmeister?
Yeah, that's actually quite a long time ago now.
Right.
We set up Crankmeister in 2013, and it was about half a year's work before that, figuring out the ropes.
Right.
But yeah, if I cast my mind back, till 2010, I was, the standard salaried employee. I worked in marketing and retail for, I guess 15, 16 years at that point in time. And at some point, I just decided that I'd had enough and wanted to do something else. So work was marketing and retail, I guess, for me.
Right. For you, Nikhil?
I joined in with Pavan roughly at the same time when Crankmeister started off. But before that, I was in a company called Runners for Life. Effectively like event management, but only sports, only running, in fact. So we were taking care of the running scene in Bangalore, organizing marathons, ultra marathons, and stuff like that. So most of my life I've been into outdoor sports or general sport and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Super. So now, how did the idea of the bike shop start? How did this, normal working, person in sales and one guy in Runners for Life, somewhere related outdoor activities. How did this bike store idea got into?
I think it stemmed from two things: enthusiasm,
right,
and frustration.
Good combo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did it take shape?
I'd met Nikhil, I think, in 2008, probably when I started doing some amount of endurance running, and most of it was with Runners for Life, and we got along well. At that point in time, I was just getting into cycling, but Nikhil already had a super cool cycle. He had a Trek 4300, if I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, an orange Trek 4300. So I used to go to him with a lot of my questions. Over the next year or so, I figured that the people that I bought my bike from weren't any good at taking care of it. So, we would compare notes about, what we could do at home to take care of our own bikes. And, when we met up, and we had a bunch of friends who also cycled. When we met up, we'd compare what worked, what didn't work. And that, I think, loosely was the broad genesis of the idea. We kept saying, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, man, I think we could do this better.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's really what it was.
And then it took shape. It started in 2013.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I was honestly employed till 2010. And then I knew I wanted to do something more outdoorsy. And for me, honestly, it was, I had to make a choice between, being something like a trek outdoorsy guide or doing something in the cycling space. And for me, both loomed equally importantly at that point in time. Cycling just worked better because, I had a young child and there were constraints around how long I could be away from home or how long I wanted to be away from home as well. And so between us talking about it and then actually doing something about it was, I guess, 2, maybe even 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. And I occupied some time in the middle of a year and a half with, training and coaching and stuff like that. Something just to keep the home fires burning while I figured out if this was something that was...
Training and coaching in corporate life. In sales and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So once you decided to take the plunge, right? So how were those initial years trying to figure out setting up the shop and figuring out the process? This is a relatively new field for, you see, as riders, you knew, you had a bike and you knew how to ride and maybe take care of it as a, for maintenance. But how was it getting into the shop and trying to set up a business as such?
I would say euphoric and scary.
Right. Yeah.
Euphoric because, we're all familiar with that feeling from something or the other in our lives. The early days, think of it as a relationship, if you like, right? It's the early days of a relationship. Everything's magical. You have no money, but, you're just figuring out how things fall in place. You're convinced that, you have some kind of a magic formula that nobody else has. It's wonderful, everything from putting up the first bikes to figuring out where things go to even cleaning out this place when we first got it. We physically cleaned out the place.
Right.
With mops and brooms and dustpans, that sort of thing. So that was the euphoria side of it. The scary side of it was not knowing whether we actually had something that was going to pay the bills.
That's the main thing, right?
That's huge. We made our peace, and because we talked about it explicitly, Nikhil and I, we made our peace with the fact that we weren't going to make a lot of money. In fact, substantially less than either of us was making then. And we were okay with that. And, what you also find as you go along is that over a period of time, your wants sort of scale down. So you're actually okay, more than okay with less money than you used to make. But whether it was going to actually work, once we actually gone through 2 or 3 product cycles, once we'd exhausted our initial working capital, once we paid off debt, would the whole cycle of revenue, wages, rent, would it actually make sense? We have no clue, man. And it took us about 3 years to figure that out. Shocking. I know 3 years sounds like a long time, but it took us 3 years to figure out whether we were actually going to be able to sustain this or not.
Yeah. So it is, but you were okay with that, the fact that you were going to make much lesser money than before, but that was like, I guess, compensating the addressing the frustration part of the earlier job, right? So, but in these 3 years, right, what were the things that kind of things that you learned the initial years in the business?
I'm going to let Nikhil feel that while I sort of collect my thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, Pawan's right that first 3 years were absolutely very very hard because although we knew one of the things was that both of us are not mechanics slash engineers, but we love working with our hands and we like mechanical things. So that was another large driver to this whole thing. So that part of it was fine. We knew that we could service bikes and we learned that. And Pawan went for a course in Portland and got himself certified and all that. The financials of things of how to handle a bike store, because a lot of other businesses exist in India, but it was the early days in cycling and premium cycles to sell or to even pitch an idea to an Indian customer that hey, there's a bike and it costs 30,000 rupees, and the expression on their face would be priceless because they're like 50 grand. What are you talking about? That's a cycle. So things like that. How to build a market for ourselves? How to figure out who are the customers? How do we reach them? How do we position ourselves? Because we could say, okay, fine, let's try to reach everybody, try to sell large numbers, or we stand our ground values and say, okay, we're going to do what we're going to do. It's going to take some time, but we will get organic traction over a period of time, which is finally what we decided to do, and it's paid off for us in the long run. So that was the difficult part, trying to figure out various things about products and customers.
Because that I was into cycling. I came to Bangalore in 2000, end of 2010 and 2011. I was quite active in the Bangalore bicycling scene, and I don't think it was until 2015 that I knew that a store called Crankmeister existed, right? And I was working right here, right? So right up the road in ITC factory, where ITC Infotech was, and I didn't know that you guys existed until one good friend, Rajnikant, who was at that time working with Happy Earth and was quite regular as dealing with you guys, and he was the one who was who told me at that time about you guys and how cool this store is, how good these guys were and all this. Like, okay, so I decided one day to walk in from during my lunch hour and see what he's talking about. What is this really good bike store about? Who he was really vocal about. Hey, Venki, you should check this out. It's a nice place, cool guys, very good mechanics, and bike service and everything is really good. And so like, okay, let me go check it out. So I walked in. And the office back then was in the other, back. And I remember you, asked me, hello, do you need any help with anything? I said, no, I'm just, checking out. So you guys had some bikes for sale at that time, I guess, before gradually moving to only service kind of setup. So I was just looking, and it had, right from the day one when I walked in, I could tell that there is that vibe, something there, which I couldn't quite point my finger at that time, but that vibe was what kind of got me back almost every day. during my lunch break, right? So I used to walk in, hang around quite a bit.
Eat here.
Yeah, eat here. Whenever my lunch, I did not get my box or something, come and eat here. So that from being a local bike store, some guys, you guys were never some guys who owned a bike store. For me and lot of my, the guys I know, you guys always have been fellow riders and friends.
That's right.
So that vibe is something that I haven't found in many places, of course, but we have great stores like Venki, Bots, Venki Wheel Sports, Bots, Cadence 90, all that. But as the proximity for me, this becoming a hangout joint as such, and the availability of that atmosphere, right? I kind of started talking about you guys because okay, this is awesome, this is a cool vibe here, we have a awesome bike store here, right? And we need to talk about it, right? So that's when I was like, whenever I stopped, once I found you guys, I stopped servicing my own bike.
Yeah, I know.
Because that was any small problem with the bike was an excuse for me to come and hang out here, bring the bike along and come and hang out here. And I started talking about Crankmeister and stuff, and slowly you guys are also kind of became active, and so I think it organic in the sense that some people like me started talking about it, and because you guys yourself weren't talking about it. Yeah.
If you think about it, it's possible that we were just being extremely tricky about it, because
Yeah.
when you say organic, well, we had you as an ambassador. Better than that, and it worked.
Right.
I think what we mean by organic, I don't think we mean that we wanted to sit back and be passive about the process. I think what we mean is that we realized that there would be a certain spool up time to the whole experience, and we needed to tighten our belts while that happened.
Right.
And
Let the work speak,
let the work speak for itself. because
and let the word of mouth go.
Yeah.
That's the best advertisement.
Right.
If you do good work and you can stand behind that good work, it's far better that you put your rupees into that kind of advertising than into mainstream media.
Right.
What have you. So I think that's what we meant. We realized that we had a customer base. It was growing steadily, organically,
Right.
to use that word again.
Yeah.
And it just needed to reach a point where there was a certain escape velocity to be seen somewhere,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And now, whether that was going to take 2 years or 3 years or 4 years was anybody's guess.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And to get like you said, do the work to get there, right? So you mentioned him going to Portland to do the mechanic certification and all that. So talk a little bit about that. The kind of one thing that I noticed immediately that kind of set you guys apart was something that I noticed about the process oriented approach to mechanics, bike mechanics. So talk a little bit about how that came about.
Right. So I went and got certified as a professional bike mechanic at the United Bicycle Institute in Portland. And little segue, but anybody that wants to work on the bikes as a professional, I can't think of a better place to go. I did this in mid 2013 after we started the store. And what it did is it brought in a lot of value, both in terms of mechanics, but also in terms of process, right? Which is something that you remarked on. And I at least was very sure back then that although it was a fair chunk of change, that it made sense to invest in that sort of training, because that's what I saw as being our key differentiator.
Right.
Nikhil and I were always quite clear that we would never have sufficiently deep pockets to be a very large retailer of bicycles.
Right.
That was really never on the cards. And also, it doesn't fit in with our interests. We're not the best salespeople in the world.
Right.
Right? So we knew that if we had to stay immersed in the business, it would have to be, we would have to demonstrate our expertise on the mech side of things. And that's really why I went. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was, once I'd made my peace with how much it was going to cost me.
Yeah.
I went, I had a fantastic time. I learned from real pros. These are people who worked on on pro teams. These are people who said, if you're in the middle of a race and you want to swap out a back wheel, your target time is 5 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
That sort of thing. And what I did is, I came back and then Nikhil and I talked about it. And over the next 6 months or so, I think, I came back with a whole sheaf of literature on the mech side of things. But we worked on getting not only ourselves, because at that time, Nikhil, and you remember Riaz, who's still a very dear friend.
Yeah.
Nikhil, Riaz, and I were the primary mechs. We did all the work ourselves. So the process of assimilation of these processes wasn't too hard. There was just 1 degree of separation.
Right.
What has worked for us over the years, though, is that once those processes were set in stone, it hasn't been too difficult for us to get other people who are mechanically inclined, get them into the business. And because the process is already set, it's not very hard for them to pick it up and run with it.
Right.
Both of us react very badly to chaos. At different levels. Like my desk is always chaotic. Nikhil's is always clean. There's not one extra slip of paper on it. But chaos in the sense of a workshop is not okay. You need to know where your tools are. You need to know what each tool does. If you come across a problem, you need to know what the process of sorting out that problem is going to be, right? What's your first step? What's your second step? What's your third step? If this process doesn't work, when do you move to the other process? And that is something that I think we've done extremely well. And, at the risk of sounding vain, I think we've done it well enough that we've been copying. And I don't say that with any grudge. I'm happy if people are going
it's good. Yeah. Right. Awesome. So, you mentioned Riaz, and you 3 guys were always here, which was the workspace at the time, and always building a wheel or tuning up a bike. Of course, the meticulous way that the job code was designed and filled up whenever a new bike came was something that kind of struck me. I never seen that before, right? And that's what, okay, this is how it is done. And that's when I kind of got curious about you getting certified from the US and all that. And what I also noticed is how meticulously you train people. At that time, Riaz was new and was getting into it. And by the end of it, I guess he was one of the best around.
Absolutely.
Right? So that was really good. And you, on the same note, you also organize workshops for people to learn, right? What are some of the things that you kind of teach there?
Anything that they want to learn. So there's really different, it's fairly modular, right? So it could be anything from a cyclist just wanting to know how to, for example, fix a puncture, do basic gear indexing with the barrel adjusters, tuning the brakes, stuff that you can do on the fly. Stuff that you can do at home before you actually head out on your ride, or in a worst case situation, do on the road if you find that you have brake rub.
Right.
Your gears are not meshing. So it could be anything from that, which is typically a half-day workshop. Anything from that to actually training professional mechanics. And we've done a fair amount of this work. I would say probably about 15 bike shops. Yeah. So training professional mechanics who haven't worked with this sort of bike.
Right.
And by professional mechanics, I mean guys who worked on the older school bikes, but haven't really used the new tools, aren't familiar with things like torque settings, aren't familiar with things like carbon fiber, so the new materials, the new tools, etc., etc. So we trained across the board, and the workshop can range from, like I said, rider-specific stuff to teaching a professional mechanic to build a wheel from scratch.
Right.
Yeah. And it can range from a half a day to, I think the longest we've done is about a week. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, Pooja on her podcast was mentioning about how getting certified by you guys, or trained by you guys for basic mechanics kind of helped when she was stuck in Turkey with a kind of broken bike, and she mentioned you are helping her over a video call. And yeah, so these things really help, like the workshops that you conduct to basic bike mechanics, to also proper professional bike mechanic courses that you guys organize, to make sure that the lot more people outside cities as well have proper bike mechanics to take care of the bikes, right? Lot of cities have riders now, but not many cities have good bike shops with the skills to take care of the bikes. So I guess that's where your contribution also kind of comes in, right? So excellent. Now let us talk a little bit about your riding, right? So when where you guys were started out as a rider and then started the shop, but you you didn't stop riding immediately after you started the shop, but you guys were riding. So what sort of riding did you guys enjoy, and how were your riding days? Now I am referring it to in past tense because you guys were because you guys are not riding that much now.
I'm guilty, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I still, although I'm not riding much, and I think I have, both of us have our reasons, and I have a very valid reason of having 2 kids now. Very, very young, absolutely no sleep and not too much time.
Yeah.
But I still love cycling a lot. And the only thing is that, training is hard and it takes a toll on mind and body, so I can't afford that right now. But you were my coach,
Right.
Most of my training days, and I absolutely enjoyed it. Most of it was road bike riding. I did a lot of the MTB rides also. MTB rides are, I feel, a lot more fun. But road was what I was able to focus on. There was a lot more road riding happening in Bangalore. We had a nice bunch of guys that we,
Rishav, Duggal.
you, and it was a nice click, and that was absolutely so much fun to do. And BBCH was, roaring. Yeah, there was good races to be had. Then we traveled a bit. Yeah, so road biking was really my scene, like for a lot of us here. And yeah.
I remember that 2016 May road race on Hassan Highway, right? So where you that road race, we knew that it was there on Hassan Highway. It is scheduled, the BBCH road race, a 100-kilometer road race. You, me, Rishav, and Dugal went out there a few weeks before, continuously, I think 2-3 weeks before, and we were executing race winning intervals. Like a few sweet spot sessions, then followed by a few VO2 intervals, followed by chasing the guy, chasing the breakaway simulations, and all that. And I remember when we got to the road race, and we were training to set up my teammate, the Dugal back then. Both Rishav, myself, and Dugal were part of the Spectrum, our part of Spectrum Racing, and you lent yourself as a domestic for Dugal as well. So we worked together, and that race, I still remember the kind of work you did back then. Like, I was working on the first half of the race to kind of make sure that you three were fresh for the second half. And we were chasing the breakaway, and you coming to the front. Shall I work? Shall I work? I said, go back. You need to save yourself for the second half. And you were in terrific shape, and you were able to survive that, and did quite well in the second half, so that Rishav and you did most of the work in the second half, and Dugal won that race. So it was quite a memorable race.
To me, actually, it's one of my best races. For multiple reasons. One is that the fact that we actually planned everything out like a professional race would be. So doing recce's, like you were saying, doing all these simulations and stuff like that. Secondly, that after this whole thing, after what we did, we actually achieved what we were going out for.
Absolutely,
finally, Dugal won, and I don't remember. I don't know if you remember that there was even a car that sort of, rider I think cut him off and all that. And Monica got him on video, and then he was disqualified and stuff like that. Till date, it's still my, although I cramped like 4 kilometers before the race end. And I was a domestic, so that was my job. I just go all out, and it doesn't matter if I finish or not. It was still my fastest race, and the most, the strongest that I've been ever. So yes, that I will never forget, that race.
So you were once a very commendable rider. Do you plan to come back and maybe not train per se, but ride more?
So
no, it is not. See, all of us, it is not to say, knock on or send you on a guilt trip or anything like that, because we all go through life phases, different, ebbs and flows, right? So it is nothing. There is no right and wrong in it. If you have to, at various points in time, you have to do what you have to do. Right now, it is really taking care of the 2 young kids and running a store and all the other things. But maybe find time here and there to kind of do some riding as well, if you can.
I thought a lot about that, and there's also Lena to keep nudging me along the way. She's not going to let me go. Well, we met over cycling, of course. So, but yes, I thought about that, and I think I will come back to some form of riding. The racing part is still a question mark right now for multiple reasons. But I did. I was off cycling for some time, and in Jan, I remember going on a couple of rides. And when I got back onto the bike, I was like, "Wow, this is so much fun!" And by DNA, I'm not a guy who is okay with going slow. I'm so out of shape, but I still want to go fast. I'm dying over there. So if I get back to it, I want to get back fairly seriously.
Yeah.
Pure racing, I don't know yet.
Yeah, but you came to and took part in tour of Goa. And
Goa, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you are not still completely out of it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was what, Jan?
Jan.
Yeah. Feb in tour of Goa. Yeah.
I remember him agonizing. In shape, but I want to go. You should just go, man.
Yeah.
What's the worst that lap? You die.
Right. Nice. So, what about you, sir?
Again, I suppose, as you said, different ebbs and flows in life.
Right.
So one of the things that happened with me is I have a history of strength training. So that's been for a long time my big thing, right?
Right.
Endurance sports never really been a big thing for me. I think the closest I've come to it has been with running a few half marathons and cycling. But I really, as a person, I respond better to short, intense bursts of effort.
Right.
It's also what gives me my jollies. I'm not apologizing for it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I realized at some point, this might have been about 2017, I think it was, that I was starting to think so much about my cycling. And, if I have to be perfectly honest, Nikhil is always a far better road cyclist than I am.
Right.
I think I held my own on the LTV side of things from a skill perspective, but I never had the combination of endurance and power that would have seen me do well. I mean, I was all right.
Yeah. You did quite a few races in BBC.
Races with a decent level of success, but there's always that you're just a little bit short of real success, right? And at some point, I remember I started agonizing over dropping those last few kilos.
Right.
The lowest I could get in weight was about 76 kilos. And 76 kilos, for me to hold 76 was a real effort. I'd hold it for a week or two and then bounce straight back to about 77, 78. And I'm not tall.
Right.
So I was, constantly telling myself that if only I could get down to 72, that my part to weight ratio would be so much better and all that. And then at some point, I remember, I hadn't at that point done any strength training in a while. I might have worked on my legs to get better as a cyclist, but no upper body. And then I realized that I was struggling to even do a couple of pull-ups.
Okay.
Which for me is slightly, it disturbs me.
Right.
For me, holistic fitness is really what I aim at. I should be able to pick something up, walk with it, move it to a certain place, ride a bicycle, change a wheel, do an obstacle course. My notion of fitness is one where I'm able to use all parts of me.
Right.
And something just clicked and I said, I have to get to a point where I'm able to feel strong. And for me, that means different things for different people.
Yeah, it is.
As a cyclist, when you say you feel strong, it means you're able to put out 250 watts for
whatever.
Or whatever. Pick a number, right?
Yeah.
For me, it means I need to do a bunch of varied activities. And what has happened in the intervening time is that I haven't been able to find that balance. So at best, all I managed to do is the occasional commute on a bicycle. But if I have to be perfectly honest, that's about it. I haven't done any mountain biking in a while. I definitely haven't done any road biking in quite a while. I'm at best a commuter right now. And even that is not as often as I'd like.
Right.
But I have just about found the spot that I want with my strength training.
That's good, as long as you are able to keep fit, doing what you love.
It's one box that I like. And I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I love bicycles. And in fact, as you know, I love anything on two wheels.
Right?
Yes. Motorized, non-motorized, it has to have two wheels. I mean, I don't even own a car.
Right.
I sold my car a few years ago. I need to find a way now to balance these two things out. Right? I don't have Nikhil's very valid reason of having two small kids. I mean, the one that I have is now in college. Um, so yeah, I think I just need to find a way to strike a balance.
Yeah. We all do. We all do.
We all do.
Yeah.
The big thing, though, if I can take another minute of your time.
Yeah.
The big thing, though, is not really one of competing likes or dislikes. It's actually not it. The big thing is actually a big choice that I had to make. I suppose both of us had to make, whether we be in the business or on the business.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And being in the business was a lot of fun because there are all these fantastic guys that we got to hang out with.
Yeah.
Names we already mentioned.
Yeah.
You, Dugal, Rishabh, bunch of fantastic guys, right? All of whom continue to be really good friends. And then we'd hang out, we'd talk nonsense, we'd eat a lot, we'd diss our opposition. It was fantastic. That was being in the business. But one of the consequences of that was that, and I will say, not Nikhil, I sort of lost sight of some of the financial goals that we had.
We still have to eat.
And my financial goals, I'm talking about, just enough money to pay the bills and break even. I'm not talking about ruling the world.
Yeah, pay the bills, pay the guys working, pay yourself, and put food on the
Paying
table.
boys, paying rent is not negotiable.
Right.
And what happened is that, neither of us has a very strong financial brain.
Right.
I think we do well in other ways. But we found that we were being hammered by taxation. We were being hammered by having bad paperwork. And as a very quick segue, any of you planning to start your own businesses, please take care of the bloody paperwork.
Right.
So there was a bunch of things, man. There was something called a C form, which is a bit of paper I'm very glad to not see. Essentially, somebody that sent you goods from out of state, you had to file something called a C form so that you paid a lower level of tax. And when the C form was removed, there was a 2-year period when the whole thing was being normalized. When GST came in and the C form was removed, we paid enormous amounts as penalties.
Wow.
And I realized that, a large part of my attention would just have to go to ensuring that we were on the right side of the law. Leave alone anything else. And that was a recurring nightmare. Where are we going to find the money from to pay all this? The question of not paying or trying to slide something under the table never arose.
Right.
So
let's talk a little bit more about Team Crankmeister, the boys, and how that is going.
I think Team Crankmeister, we all also for a short while had a Team Crankmeister racing division.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. That wasn't particularly successful. But Team Crankmeister as the store, I think, is one of the most important things that we have built, and that's what keeps us afloat. As you said, that was one of our foundation stones that we were putting in place. Everything from training to the way we treat each other as colleagues, to how we treat customers. Everything was very important from day one to us. Pavan came from quite a good background of corporate and handling people and stuff like that. My previous company also did quite well in teaching me how to handle people and take care of customers and employees. I think this is what has gotten us this far, because we are both, we have people working for us, and they're also very close people to us. They're just not employees.
Right.
So we look at them as, okay, these are our people. How are we going to help them grow? We're all one team over here, and I think that a lot of people have told us that also, that they hear the same message when they come in here, and that's important to us. It should be like, that person saying something else, I'm saying something else.
Right.
So we all sing the same song. We're all on the same page, um, and that also makes it a very, very fun place for all of us to work in.
Right.
Also a safe place.
Fun, safe place. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a place that most of us want to come to as a workspace.
Right. So I see that as as something I call the vibe, the spirit.
Yeah.
What is Crankmeister spirit or ethos for you guys?
If you were to ask me to define it in a few short words, I would say I can't.
But try.
But I try.
Yeah.
I think it's a bunch of things. Okay, like Nikhil already said, for us handling our relationships with each other and being scrupulously fair has always been extremely important. That's also, I mean, Nikhil and I are different personalities in many ways. He's extroverted, I'm introverted. Just to start, but one thing that we're both very clear on really is that people that work for us have to be treated with affection and fairness. And I'm not going to go into detail, but we do what we can. We have a very transparent and fairly liberal leave policy. It isn't one of those places where you're going to suffer a loss of pay because you have to take leave. You're entitled to leave.
Right.
In fact, I think for me, one of the nicest things is that the boys who work here have gone from a place of thinking they need to justify leave to asking for leave. All we say is that if you want to take leave, if it's anything more than a day, you should give double the notice period of the number of days of leave that you want. So if you want 2 days leave, tell us 4 days in advance.
Right.
Which I think is
Yeah, fair enough.
right.
Yeah.
So, the fact that they're entitled to leave, we have medical coverage. And especially after the COVID pandemic, that's become increasingly important. Everyone's got medical coverage, and all of us, including the two of us, have the same amount of medical coverage.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And obviously that eats into our bottom line, but it's an investment that we believe. And, Nikhil and I have medical coverage independently. Right? So it's not like we had to do it. But it is something that we believe. I think what we believe in is that if you treat people fairly, whether those are customers or employees, for the most part, you will be treated well in return.
Right.
And I think a metric that I could gauge this by is we've had, and you know this, we've known you since 2015, right? We have very low employee turnover.
Right.
Probably the lowest in the business.
Yeah.
Right? We also have a relatively low customer turnover. And I'm not going to say it's as low as employee turnover because there are every once in a while there's a relationship that doesn't work out.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think our relationships with both employees and customers are cherished.
Yeah.
And I think that probably is the ethos of the place.
Absolutely. I kind of have the same feeling with when it comes to the Crankmeister spirit, the vibe that I talk about is that, because see, I'm talking more than you guys about Crankmeister because I'm just being a big fan and a friend, but I admit it, but I am kind of biased there. But I see the same thing, the employee turnover and the customer turnover both, because both the employees and the customers feel as friends, and that's where that's why even if they go away like Riaz or someone, they have to at the end of the day they have to, if there is a better opportunity, you help them grow, right? That I have seen firsthand with Riaz and stuff, and they still remain friends.
Yeah, very.
even when they go. So that is something that is really striking about you guys, and I wish you stay like that forever. And and you guys from the start, more than selling, you focused on service and service, be it the bike mechanic service or bike fit service and stuff like that. Why is that? And why is that important?
So, yeah, so this is something that I think right from the beginning, we started off on that note. Everything from Pavan getting certified and the sort of money that we sort of invested in tools shows that this is what we initially started off with. The first reason was, as Pavan said, frustration when we started the store, because when we had bought our cycles and went to another cycle shop, they were not able to tell us what's wrong. They were not able to tell us that change the chain, otherwise your cassette will wear out and your crank will wear out. I had to end up changing all three at one shot because nobody told me to change the chain. Things like this. So we let's fix that. That's what we want fixed first. So we invested a lot of time and effort into the service area. Everything from training to tools to, training all our employees and stuff like that. That was one bit. The second was, after having spent a few years in the business, we also figured that things that are service related, service slash skill related, is something that we can keep, as in something that Pavan, me, and others have invested in, learned in, and we are the skills. Selling, there are a lot of people who can do selling, so we didn't want to fight that battle.
We
were not great at it. Yeah, we couldn't fight that battle in some sense, So we dropped that game. We stuck to what we were good at. We said, okay, we're not good at that. We're good at servicing. We're good at other skills, which are bike fit, teaching people, whether it be the amateur or the person who wants to set up a bike store, consulting for people. A lot of people have come to us and said, oh, I want a set of tools. We'll sit with them and say, okay, what are the tools that you need as an amateur? Or you're going to start a bike store. Okay, what are the tools you need? So we found that we were better at this. The outfit, our finances, our capabilities, all fit into this. So that was close to 4 or 5 years back we stopped selling cycles.
Yeah.
So like 4 years back we completely sort of officially stopped selling cycles.
At this time, I think we were one of the first in the world actually to pull that and dare I say, get away with it.
Yeah.
But you still do custom builds and sell spares and stuff like that. Yeah,
We
accessory.
do sell the odd cycle, somebody who comes in specifically with a specific bike in mind, or whether it's a custom build or things like that. The one-off we do. But overall, we are not a cycle retail store in that sense.
Right.
Typical cycle sales store.
Awesome. How did this pandemic turn out for you guys? How was the pandemic, in a sense, got a lot of people on the bikes? I see the airport road and OMR, airport road in particular, like strong with so many bikes now. So many bikes. And in the first wave, the bike stores that kind of sold bikes made good money, but they ran out of the stocks and couldn't sell. How did how did the pandemic affect cycling per se, and cycling as a business per se?
The first lockdown, as you currently identified, was probably actually good for cycling. Simply because people realized that cycling was one mode of transport that they could get away with. The authorities weren't really interested in clamping down on cyclists.
Right.
So the first wave was good for cycling. And even for us, although we didn't retail bikes off the shelf, there was increased offtake for spares, for accessories, for things like indoor trainers, you name it. Having said which, there is a certain sunk cost to being in a lockdown for 2 months.
Right.
You're not going to recover that. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Right? The costs that have been sunk in those 2 months are irrevocably gone.
Right.
And both of us had to dig deep into our pockets to keep the business afloat. As I'm sure was the case for a lot of businesses.
A lot of business, yeah.
So that was the first lockdown, if you like. The difference that we've seen between the first and the second lockdown is the second lockdown has been more business as usual. So we continue to have some sunk costs because there's rent and there's wages and all that. But the offtake hasn't been quite as dramatic as the last time round.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think not so much for us. I mean, for us, it's been, if you look at the sine of the business, it's fairly shallow. There hasn't been a pronounced peak. There hasn't been a pronounced dip either.
Right.
But I think for people who retail bicycles this time around, while there continues to be demand for bicycles, it's a demand that they can't really service.
Yeah.
And that's just bad news.
Right.
So overall, if you ask me, was the pandemic good? I'm going to say no.
Pandemic is never good.
It's never good. Leaving aside the societal implications of the pandemic, I'm saying even as a bike shop or a business, most brick and mortar businesses, I'm not talking about businesses that are serviced through an app, but for a brick and mortar business, it's not good.
Right.
And I really, really, really hope we don't have one again, because it's only now, and I would say by now, I mean only the last month in August, that we started seeing some kind of stability creep back in.
Right.
When did we reopen? Mid-July? Or was it mid-June? Mid-June. June was terrible.
Yeah.
July was only slightly better. We weren't working at anything near capacity. August was slightly better. So I'm just hoping that sentiment continues to be on the up and up, and that will only happen if you don't have another lockdown.
Yeah.
That really depends on things that you and I can't control.
Yeah, yeah. Like third wave and all
third wave, public behavior, masking.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully we are going to get back to some semblance of normalcy, and hopefully we are able to continue riding, and things like the Crankmeister Barbecue and the flea market. Things like this, we are hopeful to get back to that.
Oh yeah, these are two things that we haven't talked about in a while. I am really not so sure about the barbecue or when it will happen, but the flea market is something that I really want to do again, because all of us have a whole load of bike stuff sitting at home that's either the wrong size or doesn't work for us anymore.
Dude, I have 2 boxes ready and packed and waiting for the Crankmeister flea market.
Was the flea market initially your idea? I can't remember.
Maybe
somebody's brainwave, and we said, what?
Yes, all of us, when we were sitting and hanging out,
I think that's
we started talking about selling stuff, and then said, okay, let's do a flea market. And that's how it came about, I think.
It's absolutely brilliant, right?
Yeah. So I bought stuff I don't need, and I have a ton of it that I say, look to get out, get off. And I bought a ton of stuff again back from the flea market.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Since the emphasis really is on making sure that you don't go back home with the stuff you came here with, right? People just sell stuff at a really, really good price. And if you're looking, I remember somebody got a 105 group set, admittedly battered, but somebody got a 105 group set at some $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I really want to do the flea market.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Crankmeister flea market and the barbecue. How many years now? 8?
Yeah.
Eight with yeah, it's been 8 years now.
Dude, I love the barbecue.
Yeah.
Man. So that's the anniversary tradition you guys have started, right?
Yeah.
We do it in Jan. That's when we started the store.
Right.
And so we thought, yeah, we call all our close friends, treat them to an evening of
Barbecue.
beer and good food. And
Can we say beer online? I'm not sure.
You can. It is
You're not selling
you're not selling it. You're just serving it.
Yeah.
With any luck, we'll actually do both. Hopefully, the flea market first. I'm sure that with the pandemic, people have got a whole. You can't be alone. There must be people with boxes full of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just need to figure out the distancing part of it because, we can't be cheek by jowl in the current environment.
I know. Yeah. We need to be responsible citizens. Yeah. All right. Where do you see Crankmeister and yourself in, say, 5-10 years? Like a HR kind of question.
God, that's a great question. I suppose those are different questions and there are
Right.
different axes to answer them on because there's Nikhil's answer, my personal answer, Crankmeister answer.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah. Yeah, I think 10 years is too far. We haven't thought of that. 5 years is like the outer limit.
Right.
Pavan and I have thought and discussed a lot about this because, as you know, we did the organic thing growing. And a year and a half back, we were thinking, okay, what next? We've sort of gotten to a nice stage of, good service, everything's in place and everything's running well-oiled machine. We have to do something more. Also because in this world, if you don't innovate and move forward, you're going to die.
Right.
Also,
So,
Border.
yeah.
because you need to do something else and do it well.
You need to,
Yeah.
do something different, right? Because this has been happening for so long, and now everything is going on, and at some point, human gets a little bored.
Right.
So I think we're still sticking on the same path roughly. We would like to add a few more lines of business as layers to this. But there isn't going to be drastic change in any sense like, multiple stores or, across India or anything like that. We're still going to remain mostly in this format. Hopefully, we're putting in a little more effort into the sales side of things. We still don't want to sell cycles, but we want to sell everything around cycles and accessories and that sort of stuff. Getting a little more aggressive really into that. I think that's our initial goal for the next 1 or 2 years.
Right.
Just get more things in. And these are things that we choose carefully. Something we said initially, and I think I still stick with that, is we wouldn't want to sell something we are not happy with.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So we tend to be choosy about what we do sell, at the risk of sometimes being considered slightly elitist. We just want to move the retail boat out a little bit more rather than where it is right now. And I think that's going to take a fair bit of attention. The other big one for us, and something that I completely enjoy, and I think Nikhil likes too, is bike fit. For me, bike fit is actually the one part of the business. There are two parts of this business that I enjoy firsthand. One is wheel building, which I really haven't had much time to do in the last couple of years. Also because we have a full complement of mechs, so the moment I pick something up, I'm like, sir, mech aata hai. Sometimes you don't want that, you want to do it yourself. So I haven't had much chance of that. But the bike fit, for me, is something that's extremely rewarding. Right? Because you can see a before and after very clearly.
Yes. Yeah.
right? Especially when it goes well. And you know this because I remember I did your bike.
Yeah.
But when you work with an experienced cyclist and the feedback loop is nice and fluid, right?
Right.
Not only does the bike fit happen faster, there's a very clear sense of accomplishment at the end of it for both people.
Right.
So for me, that is the one thing that gives me the absolute most satisfaction in this business, and that's what I see it doing going forward. So there's, for us, more investment both in terms of effort as well as money on the bike fit side of things. So everything, not everything, but a lot of things that we're getting in are to further the whole bike fit game.
Right.
Shoes,
Yeah.
a whole lot of little bits and bobs around fit, like shins, wedges, insoles.
Right.
Just make the ride better. Because,
Right.
when somebody takes the bike back and then does a couple of rides and texts you saying, "Oh, that pain is gone," or "Oh, you know what, my power balance is." It's not 45, 55 anymore. It's more like 51, 49.
Yeah.
These are things that are immensely rewarding.
Yeah.
They stay with you.
I absolutely agree. The bike fit is something, apart from a smooth running bike, which you guys are already experts in. Another thing is bike fit, right? That is extremely important. You don't want numb hands at the end of a ride, not numb perineum and not, aching back. Stuck shoulders by the end of it. All these are absolute downers for someone to continue riding, right? So those, if you are and you guys are I am first hand experience, I have first hand experience that are doing extremely good job with that. So I hope whatever you continue to do, be it the service, be it the bike fit, be it the retailing of accessories and stuff, I hope you guys do extremely well, not for you, just your sake, but for the bike community's sake, because having good bike stores who are able to cater to your needs is extremely important for us working athletes to continue, to pursue our goals without, take these things taking too much of headspace, right? We have enough stuff to deal with, be it at work or be it, worrying about those intervals on the bike. We don't want to also worry about that strange noise that the bike is giving, or that back that is aching. All right. So I hope for all of our sakes that you guys continue to do well and continue to grow in your stuff. So it's been a fantastic chat with you boys. I loved recording our usual chats. But to conclude this session, what are some of the tips or thoughts that you would like to share with the work?
I would say, and this has nothing to do with me owning a bike shop, but I would say stay moving, right? Stay mobile.
Right.
In whatever fashion.
Right.
All of us tend to just spend too long sitting down. And yeah, sure, sitting down is part of recovery. But once you're done with the recovery, if you're mobile, you'll find that miraculously somehow all those aches and pains, those niggles that creep up on you as you get, as you move into middle age,
right,
just miraculously disappear.
Right. Yeah, like the sitting is the new smoking, someone said.
Yeah.
And for me, that is because of the tight hips that I developed sitting so much.
Yeah.
That's a game changer.
I would say, there's an old saying that you should always, by the time I think this year 40 or something, you should find a physician, a lawyer, and an accountant that you're comfortable with. I would add a bike shop to that list.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Completely. Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent, man. Thanks again for taking the time. and spending the time with the Working Athlete podcast. For any listeners or the viewers on YouTube and your favorite podcasting app, if you are in Bangalore, you know the location of the bike shop, the Crankmeister Bike Shop, Crankmeister Bicycle Works, near Everest Theatre in Fraser Town. And you can drop in with your bike, all your bike needs and your bike fit needs, and accessories and all the other good stuff. And subscribe to the channel and drop in your comments. And
Thank you.
until next time.